What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, the funny thing is, I actually made this video immediately after the fight, the day after, and this was before I got the knowledge of what was going on in terms of Pacquiao sitting out for the rest of the year, shoulder surgery. So I scrapped it. I'm re-recording it because I don't remember exactly what I said, and again, this was before some news came out. Now, I don't just make up problems on my channels. I like to come up with solutions. So this is my list of the best top 5 opponents for Manny Pacquiao to face next. Some of you guys keep riding for this Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Me, I'm not a big fan of a rematch, at least immediately. I've already seen what I needed to see. However, these are 5 fights and opponents that I would love to see Manny Pacquiao fight, and then I'm going to explain it. Now, when I do these list videos, some people get mad. Why'd you put this or this and that? This is the ego list, boxing ego list. This is my personal picks. If you guys have a different list, you can leave it in the comments. You can make your own video. But people get mad almost at me for putting a certain person on because they don't agree with it. Again, this is the ego list. This is my personal preference, and I'm going to explain why I like all of these fights. I think they're all tremendous fights. It's just like me liking pizza over tacos, and then people get mad because that's my personal preference, and that's what my taste buds are like. Like, just because your favorite food is tacos doesn't mean it's mine, even though that's not true because I love pizza and tacos. They're both fucking delicious. So, without further ado, my list, and it's in no particular order. I didn't feel like ranking it and all that. So on my list, I put Danny Garcia. Now, this is an interesting fight. Some people are going to be scratching their head like, Ego, why are you picking this particular fight? He looked like a bum, or all these crazy comments that you guys leave. But in boxing, styles make fights. What has troubled Danny Garcia is not necessarily Pacquiao's style. A bit of it, like in the Amir Khan fight, would be the closest example, but he was able to finally get the timing down and get the job done in that particular fight. So in terms of the fights that are controversial wins, and a lot of people thought he lost, recently would be Mauricio Herrera and Lamont Peterson. Pacquiao fights nothing like neither of those guys. Herrera used and employed an excellent jab, and Lamont Peterson I consider a good overall, pretty complete fighter that's slick, and I don't compare Pacquiao to that. I don't think Pacquiao is slick per se. So the thing that's intriguing with this fight is I think Danny Garcia would have a size advantage. He's pretty big. I've seen him, like, he's walking around weight and whatnot. He has a killer left hook, so I'm wondering if he can get that off on a southpaw. And for him, he needs a big win. A lot of people, if you look at his last 3 fights, 2 of them have ended controversially, where a lot of people thought the loser of those fights were really the winner. So he needs something big. It's an interesting style matchup. Pacquiao has the speed, the work rate, and the southpaw stance. So again, I want to see how Danny Garcia would look. And it showed in the past that Danny Garcia had a good chin. I want to see if he could take Pacquiao's power. So I really overall like the fight. Again, you could base whatever on Lamont Peterson and Mauricio Herrera, but what I try to tell people, styles make fights, and the style matchup could be everything. Danny Garcia could fight a different style than Lamont Peterson and look exceptional and sensational, a good fighter, but it's all about the style matchup. So I would want to see how both fighters fare in this particular fight. Pacquiao being the higher work rate, more pro level experience, and that kind of stuff. So that's an interesting fight for me. Another fight is Terence Crawford. Now, I really like this. This is, to me, a good redemption type fight if Pacquiao were able to beat Terence Crawford, because people want to see that Pacquiao is not just the same old Pacquiao, that he's improved. You just lost to Floyd Mayweather. Now this is another one that they compared to Mayweather, Pernell Whitaker-ish, in terms of being a talented, fast-thinking, slick fighter in Terence Crawford, and he's undefeated. And he's pretty big too. He rehydrated in the Gamboa fight over 150 pounds. So again, I think he would have a height and a size advantage over Pacquiao, and his style has been problematic for Pacquiao. Now, on the flip side, for Pacquiao, Pacquiao is unorthodox. He's a left-hander, and we've seen Terence Crawford get clipped by Gamboa, and it looked like he was hurt in that fight. Beltran didn't really have many spots, but there were a couple points. I've seen that fight live. A couple points where Beltran piled it on, and that's a longtime sparring partner of Pacquiao. He piled it on and connected some shots. So I want to see just how good Terence Crawford is, if he can process and stay out of danger against a guy like Pacquiao who's going to come at you. And if Pacquiao, like I said, if he were to win, that's a good, significant win, showing that he could beat a slick style boxer, which has always given him problems in the past. So instead of a Mayweather rematch, I would rather see this, than a Mayweather rematch. And I also put on my list Canelo. Now this is a tricky one because they seem to be going in different directions in terms of their weight, but I would love to see it if they could agree upon a certain type of weight, catch weight of 152 like Mayweather did. I don't know how realistic that is, but if somehow, some way they were able to get it done, I would love to see it. Canelo, fast hands, slow feet. How would he fare against a guy like Pacquiao? Pacquiao made a whole career beating up on the bigger man, the guys like Antonio Margarito. But the difference being Canelo doesn't fight like Margarito. He's more of an educated boxer puncher instead of a slow brawler type that can take punishment and then dish out punishment. That's not really Canelo's MO. And Canelo has beautiful hand speed and combination punching. So I'm curious to see how Pacquiao would fare against a guy like that who's just bigger than him and has great combination punching. If he can reduplicate a performance of old like he was with Margarito and when he was fighting all the bigger guys back in the day. So there's some advantages for Pacquiao in that fight in terms of like the speed, the movement could really bother Canelo. I've never seen anyone with movement quite like Pacquiao. The closest would be Mayweather, but Mayweather is more of a slick, elusive, rhythmic fight flow or whatever. Versus Pacquiao, he's just all over the place, like do do do, like it moves at unorthodox times and stuff like that. So I've never seen Canelo in with someone quite like Pacquiao, and I want to see how Pacquiao at this point of his career would look against someone like a Canelo who's bigger than him, and he has some advantage and some disadvantages against, just like he did with Antonio Margarito. Also on the list, this is a fight I love: Pacquiao versus Lucas Mattthsse. Now, this is a really good fight. Back in the day, I wanted to see Edwin Valero versus Pacquiao, obviously based on the untimely death and suicide and murder of Edwin Valero. That never came into fruition. However, what I like about this fight is the timing is good. Even though Pacquiao's off of a loss, it's he's saying he had a shoulder injury and things like that, and you lost to the #1 pound for pound dude, so your stock doesn't drop too much, other than the people who are arguing for the last 5 years. But Mattthsse is off of a good win. He showed he was durable and tough and box smart versus Ruslan Provodnikov, a mean come forward brawler with menacing power. So for Pacquiao, this is an interesting matchup, especially if he decides that, you know what, 147 at this point in my career is not quite where I want to be, and he drops down to 140. Or Lucas Mattthsse is pretty big frame, so they can even make this at a catchweight. Not a huge fan of catchweights, but if they wanted to make this fight at like a 144 or 145, I don't see too many people complaining about it. And I like it because Lucas Mattthsse, he showed he has a beard, he's tough, he's game. Even in the Danny Garcia fight, his eye was swollen, but I generally felt he was still trying. He didn't just give up and quit on the stool or anything like that. And he's a boxer puncher. Beautiful body work. He needs to get back to that. But he in the past had beautiful body work. So I want to really see at this point of his career how bad he wants to get to the next level. And I also want to see at this point in Pacquiao's career how he deals with someone with power who has a good come forward style, but it's not just Ruslan Provodnikov one-dimensional. Lucas Mattthsse can box, but he can also bang. So I think this is a really good fight at 140, 144, 145 maybe, something like that. And Pacquiao being with Top Rank, and Top Rank now working with Golden Boy, and Lucas Mattthsse being with Golden Boy, I think this is feasible that they could actually make something like this. And last on my list, Manny Pacquiao versus THURMAN. Now, especially if Floyd is going to vacate and relinquish belts, it's a good fight. Pacquiao, if he wants to stay at 147, there's a guy like Keith Thurman who just had his biggest test with Robert Guerrero, and we know he has power. He shows ability to move, to box smart, but he also has like good power, top 3 power at the current welterweight picture. So it's an interesting fight. Keith Thurman has never faced anyone quite like Pacquiao. So I know Keith Thurman is a student of the game. You listen to his interviews. I interviewed him with Dante's Boxing Nation, and we were all talking to him, and just he knows the game. He knows the game of boxing. But I want to see how well he can. Saying is one thing. I want to see how he can apply it against a guy like Pacquiao. How will he be with somebody who's a southpaw and has that style he calls the jackrabbit style, which frenetic energy and bouncing all over the place? How will he do that? Because some people weren't content with his performance against Leonard Bundu, and Bundu provided some movement, and he was going ambidextrous, switching to southpaw, things like that, and he had a bit of a tough time. Well, actually, I wouldn't. I take that back. He didn't have a tough time, but it just wasn't his most sensational performance. He still dominated, but he didn't look as impressively as he did when he fought Jesus Soto Karass or a guy like that, or Guerrero even. So interesting style matchup, and this is a young, hungry champion with something to prove. And then also, I think Pacquiao, off of a loss to Mayweather, you kind of want to see him in a big fight. He's not going to go back and fight a Rod Salka or Humberto Soto. I mean, I think these are all backtracks. So for me, for Pacquiao, when his shoulder heals, I would love to see something like this with Keith Thurman. That is my list of the top 5 fights that I want to see for Manny Pacquiao next. I personally have no interest in the Mayweather-Pacquiao rematch. I think Floyd, his just skill-wise, is just a different level. His ability to process. You look at Floyd in rematches, even in fight, he could be losing the first portion of a fight like he was with Zab Judah, and he makes those adjustments. So, I mean, even in a rematch with, quote-unquote, a healthy Pacquiao, since that's what they want to call it, I think it would be more of the same. And again, people complain about the first one so much, I don't see why there's an interest in even seeing a rematch. Because if Floyd doesn't knock Pacquiao out, then we're going to hear the same banter about it was a boring fight and he's not TBE because he didn't get a knockout. I mean, why even go through all of that again? We waited 5 years. People were underwhelmed, or if they loved it, whatever standpoint that they had, let boxing move on. These two guys, the world doesn't revolve around two fighters. So I think they can finish their careers by facing other talents. That's my personal opinion. Make sure you like my video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video, is Ego signing off.